My roommate gave my laptop password to his leech of a best friend, who stole the poem I'd spent 3 weeks perfecting and entered it as his own. When I asked why he betrayed me, he snorted and said, "Relax. Creative types like you never win anything big." Anyway, I stayed silent. That was 6 weeks ago. Yesterday, he was hauled out of class in handcuffs for academic misconduct. When I got a new roommate in sophomore year, I was extremely grateful. Dan was everything that my last one wasn't. Clean, quiet, respectful, the type of guy to spend his Saturday evening catching up on a romance book with a cup of hot cocoa. But there was one flaw, one thing I truly hated about him. His best friend, Trevor. The first time I met him, I walked in on him and Dan working on a group project together, which really just meant Trevor convincing Dan to do all the work, using the excuse that he helps Dan get girls, so he owes him. The girls in question being a girl who hugged him at a frat party during orientation week. I was about to laugh, thinking he was joking. But then Dan took his laptop and literally started doing 2 slideshows on 2 different laptops at the same time. Well, that was back when Dan and I were tight, so I just said out loud, "Dan, what are you doing? Trevor can do his own work." I was expecting Dan to go silent and let me argue with Trevor on his behalf, or even argue against Trevor with me. But instead, he said, "Dude, you don't know Trevor like I do. He's going through a lot right now. F off." I glanced over to Trevor, who had a huge smirk on his face, and I just hoped that this truly was a once-off, but it wasn't. Over the next few weeks, Trevor would come over twice a week, and I would instantly know because he would always leave behind a trail of destruction. A broken charger, cigarette butts, rancid, sweaty gym socks. One time, he saw a cute girl outside and tried to impress her by smearing barbecue sauce all across our windows, 3 tubs of it. When she didn't laugh, he asked Dan to clean up for him. He did. But I'm Middle Eastern, so I was raised to always be welcoming to guests. I always tried my best to accommodate Trevor because, at the end of the day, their friendship was their business. Whenever I ordered food when Trevor was over, I'd order for all 3 of us and pay for it, too. When Trevor was sick, I made him homemade soup, and he was better the next day. But it wasn't long before he took the requests too far and started treating me like he treated Dan. There was a poetry competition hosted by the Literary Society, and the owner of the best poem would win $1,000. I applied because I thought I had a chance of winning, and I wanted to replace my sister's crappy 2012 Chromebook with a MacBook for her. We grew up poor, and she rarely bought anything new for herself. Since my dad left when I was a newborn baby, she never had anyone to spoil her. This meant that the poem needed to be perfect. I waited until the day before the deadline to submit. The same day, Trevor came over. "Hey James, did you apply to that poetry thing?" was the very first thing he asked when he saw me. I don't know why I didn't just lie, but I didn't. "Yep," I said, straight-faced and uninviting. "Hey, do you think I could copy?" "No." "Trevor," I interrupted, not wanting to entertain it. "And if you even think about trying to use my poem, I will ruin your reputation by any means necessary." Kind of cringy, I know, but his reputation meant more to him than anything. Even as I spoke those words, I could see him gulp down a ball that had formed in his throat. I guess I got cocky because I truly thought that was enough to steer him away. So I left and planned on submitting that evening. But when I got home, Trevor wasn't there, and neither was my poem. I scoured my entire laptop. Every file, document, and website was gone. It was while I scrambled like a maniac that Dan walked in. I swear I could see a bead of sweat trickle down his forehead. "Dan, did you use my laptop today?" "No, but Trevor did," he responded. I took a deep breath and asked how he got through the password protection, trying to keep my voice calm. "Oh, I gave it to him. He needed." I stopped listening after that. My mouth went completely dry, and I started zoning out. I thought about all the hours I had spent, how I had promised my little sister the laptop, how excited she had been. This would be the first birthday gift she got that wasn't a hand-me-down. "Hey, are you okay?" Dan asked. I gave Dan a huge smile. "Of course I am." You see, I knew there was no way Dan would take my side. He had been brainwashed by a pathetic goblin hiding in the body of a 20-year-old boy. But I was about to peel back the layers and show everyone who he really is. I grabbed my phone and pulled up Trevor's Instagram. Most of his posts showed him partying or posing with random girls trying to look cool. What caught my eye was a post from last week where he mentioned getting a new job at the campus bookstore. Perfect. I needed proof that the poem was mine, and I needed it fast. I pulled up the document history on my cloud storage. Thank God for autosave features. There were dozens of saved versions showing my editing process over the past 3 weeks. I took screenshots of everything, showing timestamps and all the changes I'd made. Next, I texted my English Lit professor from last semester. We'd had a good relationship, and she had actually helped me brainstorm early ideas for this poem. I explained the situation and asked if she could email me confirming we discussed the poem concepts weeks ago. She responded almost immediately, saying she'd be happy to help. With evidence gathering underway, I decided to confront Trevor directly. I texted him, "I know what you did. We need to talk. Meet me at the library in 30 minutes. While waiting for his response, I went through my notes app where I had jotted down ideas and lines for the poem over the past month. More evidence. My phone buzzed with a text from Trevor. "Whatever, dude. You're just jealous of my talent." That's when I knew this wasn't going to be resolved easily. Dan came into the room looking nervous. "Trevor told me what happened," he said. "He said you're trying to steal his poem." I couldn't believe what I was hearing. "Are you serious right now? You know that was my poem. You saw me working on it for weeks." Dan shrugged, avoiding eye contact. "I don't know, man. Trevor's my best friend. He wouldn't lie about something like this." "Yes, he absolutely would," I replied. "And you know it." I headed to the library anyway, but Trevor never showed up. Instead, he texted me. "Changed my mind. Already submitted the poem. Nothing you can do now." He was right about one thing. The submission deadline was approaching fast. But he was wrong about there being nothing I could do. I sat down at a library computer and began drafting an email to the Literary Society judges. I attached all my evidence, the document history, my professor's confirmation email, screenshots of my notes app with timestamps. I explained the whole situation clearly and professionally. Just as I was about to hit send, I remembered something. Trevor had used my laptop to steal the poem. What else had he accessed while he was on there? I opened my browser history and found that he'd been snooping through all my files and even my email. I realized I should have changed my password immediately after learning Dan had shared it with Trevor, but I had been too focused on recovering my poem and the looming deadline to think about it. That's when an idea hit me. This wasn't just about the poem anymore. This was about making sure Trevor finally faced consequences for his actions. I pulled out my phone and sent a quick message to my sister, explaining why the laptop might be delayed. I couldn't bear to completely dash her hopes yet, so I told her there was a complication with the competition, but I was working on it. Her response broke my heart. Just a simple, "It's okay. I don't need anything fancy anyway," followed by a heart emoji. That cemented it for me. This wasn't just about a poem or a prize anymore. This was about standing up to a bully who'd gone too far while also keeping my promise to my sister. Looking closer at my browsing history, I noticed Trevor had accessed my Google Drive, where I keep all my assignments. He had also been through my email and even scrolled through my text messages. The invasion of privacy made my skin crawl. I felt violated knowing someone had sifted through years of personal conversations and documents without my permission. Each discovered breach felt like another punch to the gut. But then I spotted something useful. He had logged into his own email on my laptop and forgot to log out. Rookie mistake. I clicked on his email and found a goldmine. Trevor had a habit of emailing himself notes and assignments, including several that looked suspiciously like papers he'd stolen from other people. There were messages from group project members asking why he never contributed anything. Buried in his drafts folder was an email to Dan from a week ago where he literally wrote, "James is such a pushover, lol. Free food and homework help whenever I want." I took screenshots of everything, adding to my growing collection of evidence. My hands were shaking slightly as I documented each incriminating item, partly from anger and partly from nervous energy. The clock showed 11:15 p.m., 45 minutes until the submission deadline. I finished my email to the Literary Society, attached all my evidence, and hit send. But I wasn't done yet. I forwarded those incriminating emails to myself before logging out of his account. Then I pulled up the university's academic integrity webpage and found the form for reporting plagiarism. I filled it out carefully, explaining the situation and attaching my evidence. I didn't just report the poem theft. I included evidence of all the other assignments he'd apparently stolen. By the time I finished, it was 11:40 p.m. I opened the Literary Society submission page and wrote a completely new poem in 15 minutes. It wasn't my best work, but it was authentically mine. I submitted it right before the midnight deadline, then headed back to my dorm, exhausted but somewhat relieved to have taken action. When I got there, Dan was sitting on his bed looking worried. "Trevor's been texting me nonstop," he said without looking up. "He says you're trying to get him in trouble." "He got himself in trouble," I replied, too tired to argue anymore. "He stole my work, Dan. He went through my personal files." Dan looked up, a flicker of doubt crossing his face. "He said you're making it all up because you're jealous of him." I laughed, actually laughed out loud. Jealous of what, exactly? His ability to manipulate people? His skill at taking credit for other people's work? Please enlighten me. Dan didn't have an answer for that. He just mumbled something about loyalty and went to bed. I stayed up late, too anxious to sleep, wondering what would happen next. My mind kept racing through possible scenarios, each more stressful than the last. The weight of what I'd done, standing up to someone who clearly had no problem lying or manipulating situations, settled heavily on my shoulders. I got my answer at 8 a.m. the next morning when my phone exploded with notifications. I had 3 emails, one from the Literary Society, one from the university's Academic Integrity Office, and one from Trevor himself. The Literary Society email came first. "Dear James, we've received your complaint about plagiarism. After reviewing the evidence, we've disqualified Trevor Michael's submission and will be considering your original submission for the competition. Thank you for bringing this to our attention." The Academic Integrity Office wanted to schedule a meeting with me to discuss the evidence I'd submitted. They would be conducting an investigation into Trevor's academic history. Trevor's email was just a string of angry accusations and threats ending with, "You're going to regret this." I forwarded that one to the university office as well, just to have it on record. I was brushing my teeth when the door burst open and Trevor stormed in. His face was red with anger as he shouted at me. I just calmly rinsed my mouth before responding. "You're not welcome here anymore," I told him quietly. "Dan didn't invite you, and I certainly didn't. You think you can just ruin my life and get away with it?" he snarled, getting way too close to my face. I held my ground. "I didn't ruin anything. You did that yourself when you decided to steal my work. It was just a stupid poem. Why are you being such a little?" "Because it wasn't just about the poem," I cut him off. "It's about everything. The way you treat Dan like your personal servant. The way you leave your mess for others to clean up. The way you took advantage of my hospitality and then stabbed me in the back." Dan walked in during my speech, stopping in the doorway with wide eyes. Trevor immediately tried to get him on his side. "Dan, tell your psycho roommate to back off. He's trying to get me kicked out of school." But something had changed in Dan's expression. He looked between us and finally said, "Maybe you should go, Trevor. We can talk later." Trevor's jaw dropped. "You serious right now? After everything I've done for you? What exactly have you done for him?" I asked. "Name one thing." Trevor sputtered but couldn't come up with anything concrete. He shot me a venomous look before storming out, slamming the door behind him so hard that several books fell from my shelf. The hallway echoed with his angry footsteps as he stomped away, cursing loudly enough for the entire floor to hear. The silence that followed was awkward. Dan sat on his bed, looking at the floor. "I saw the emails," he finally admitted. "Trevor left his phone unlocked while he was in the bathroom. I saw what he said about you. About me, too." "What did he say about you?" I asked, genuinely curious. "Just stuff about how easy I am to manipulate. How he's been using me since high school." Dan's voice was quiet. I always knew on some level. I just didn't want to believe it. The conversation was interrupted by my phone ringing. It was my sister. I answered, and she excitedly told me she'd received an email from the Literary Society congratulating me on being a finalist for the competition. They hadn't announced the winner yet, but being a finalist was a good sign. After I hung up, Dan asked if we were cool. I told him I needed some time to process everything. He nodded and left for class, looking dejected but understanding. Over the next week, things were tense. Trevor was suspended pending the academic integrity investigation. Apparently, once they started looking, they found multiple instances of plagiarism in his past assignments. Some professors had suspected but could never prove anything before. Dan and I existed in an awkward truce. He tried to apologize several times, but I wasn't ready to forgive him yet. I focused on my classes and tried to put the whole mess behind me. Then it happened. I got the email from the Literary Society. "Congratulations. Your poem, Chromebook Chronicles, has won first place in our annual competition. Please attend the awards ceremony next Friday to receive your $1,000 prize. I actually jumped up and down in my empty dorm room, then immediately called my sister to tell her the good news. She screamed so loud I had to hold the phone away from my ear. The laptop was back on. When Dan found out, he seemed genuinely happy for me. He offered to come to the ceremony for support, but I politely declined. This was something I wanted to enjoy without the reminder of all the drama. The night before the ceremony, I was studying in the library when my phone buzzed with a text from an unknown number. It was a photo of my poem submission with a caption, "Enjoy your moment while it lasts." My stomach dropped. It had to be Trevor. I immediately forwarded the message to the campus security email along with an explanation of the situation. I tried to focus on studying, but my mind kept racing with worst-case scenarios. What if Trevor showed up at the ceremony and made a scene? What if he tried to harm me somehow? When I got back to the dorm, Dan was waiting up for me. "Everything okay?" He looked stressed. I showed him the text. His face darkened. "That's definitely Trevor. He's been posting weird, cryptic stuff on his private Instagram, too." "You're still following him on Instagram?" I asked, a little hurt. "Only to keep tabs on what he's saying. He's been telling everyone you framed him and ruined his life." Some people believe him, but most don't, especially after the Academic Integrity Office found all those other plagiarized assignments. I sighed and sat on my bed. I just want this to be over. I want to get the prize money, buy my sister her laptop, and move on. "I could come with you tomorrow," Dan offered again, just in case he tries something. This time, I accepted. I didn't think Trevor would actually do anything dangerous, but having backup couldn't hurt. The next morning, I dressed in my nicest button-up shirt and slacks. Dan and I walked to the campus auditorium where the ceremony was being held. I kept scanning the crowd, nervous about spotting Trevor, but there was no sign of him. The ceremony went smoothly. When they called my name, I walked up to accept the check and certificate. The head of the Literary Society praised my poem for its emotional honesty and unique perspective on family bonds. I gave a short, awkward thank you speech and returned to my seat, relieved that nothing had gone wrong. Dan and I were walking back to the dorm when I got another text from the unknown number. "Check your email now." I pulled up my email on my phone and felt my blood run cold. There was a message from Trevor sent to me, the Literary Society judges, and about 20 other people, including professors and students. The subject line read, "Plagiarist Exposed." It contained screenshots of poems from an obscure online poetry forum. One of them had several lines that were similar to parts of my poem. "This is complete BS," I told Dan, showing him the email. "I've never even seen this website before." "It's obviously fake," Dan agreed. "The account posting those poems was probably created recently. Trevor's trying to do to you what you did to him." My phone started buzzing with notifications. The Literary Society wanted to speak with me urgently. A few friends were texting to ask what was going on. I felt sick to my stomach. "I need to fix this," I said, turning around and heading back toward the English department where the Literary Society was based. "Wait," Dan called, jogging to catch up. "I think I know how to prove he's lying." "How?" I asked, desperate for any solution. "Remember how I said I've been monitoring his social media? He's been bragging in private messages about his revenge plan. I took screenshots when I saw them because I was worried he might do something like this." I could have hugged him. Instead, I just nodded gratefully, and we hurried to meet with the Literary Society judges. The meeting was tense. The judges showed me the email and asked for my response. I maintained my innocence and explained that Trevor had a vendetta against me because I reported his plagiarism. Dan showed them the screenshots of Trevor's messages where he literally talked about creating fake evidence to frame me. "Also," I added, "you can check the website's registration date. I bet that poetry forum account was created after I submitted my original work." The head judge nodded and pulled up the site on her computer. Sure enough, the account posting the supposedly original poems had been created just 3 days ago. All the poems had been backdated to make them appear older. "This is clearly a fabrication," she concluded after examining the evidence. "We stand by our decision. Your poem was original and deserving of the prize." Relief washed over me. We left the office with apologies from the judges for putting me through additional stress. As we walked back to the dorm, Dan's phone buzzed with a notification. "Trevor's been officially expelled," he said, reading the message from a mutual friend. The Academic Integrity Committee found evidence of plagiarism in almost all his major assignments. They're nullifying his credits for the past 2 semesters. That seems harsh, I remarked, feeling a twinge of guilt despite everything. Dan shook his head. It's not just about the plagiarism anymore. He threatened you, created fake evidence, and tried to damage your reputation. The university is taking it as a harassment case now, too. When we got back to our room, I immediately deposited the check through my banking app and started browsing for the perfect laptop for my sister. Dan sat across from me, looking thoughtful. I'm really sorry, James, he said after a while. I should have believed you from the beginning. I knew what kind of person Trevor was, but I just kept making excuses for him. Why did you? I asked, genuinely curious. You're a smart guy. You must have known he was using you. Dan sighed. We've been friends since elementary school. He was actually nice back then. When my parents divorced, he was the only one who stuck by me. I guess I felt like I owed him my loyalty, even when he changed. I nodded, understanding a bit better now. Well, for what it's worth, I think you showed real courage standing up to him in the end. The next day, I received a delivery notification. The laptop I'd ordered for my sister had shipped and would arrive well before her birthday in 2 weeks. I was relieved that the timing had worked out despite all the drama with Trevor in the contest. That evening, Dan and I were playing video games when there was a knock at our door. Dan opened it to find 3 of Trevor's friends standing there. They looked uncomfortable. Is James here? One of them asked. I paused the game and walked over. What's up? We wanted to apologize, the tallest one said. Trevor told us you framed him, and we believed him at first, but then we saw all the evidence, and, well, we realized he's been lying to us about a lot of things. Another guy nodded. He's been taking credit for our work, too. We just never compared notes until now. We're actually having a small party tomorrow night, the third one added. You guys should come. No Trevor, obviously. After they left, Dan looked at me with raised eyebrows. Are you going to go? I shrugged. Maybe. Seems like Trevor's whole social circle is falling apart. Good, Dan said firmly. He needs to learn that he can't treat people like tools. 2 weeks later, I was on a video call with my sister as she opened her birthday present. Her screams of delight when she saw the new laptop made all the drama worthwhile. She immediately started customizing it, showing me all the features and how much faster it was than her old Chromebook. This is the best gift ever, she kept saying, beaming at me through the screen. I can't believe you did this for me. She spun around in her chair, clutching the laptop to her chest like a precious treasure. Her excitement was so pure and genuine that I felt tears welling up in my eyes. This moment, seeing her unbridled joy, made every confrontation with Trevor worth it. After the call, I found Dan in our common area studying for a physics exam. Our relationship had improved significantly over the past couple of weeks. We weren't best friends, but we had developed a mutual respect. How does your sister like the laptop? He asked, looking up from his textbook. She loves it, I replied with a smile. Totally worth fighting for. Speaking of fighting, Dan said, closing his book. I heard Trevor tried to appeal his expulsion. The committee denied it. He's officially done at this university. I nodded, feeling a complicated mix of satisfaction and sympathy. What's he going to do now? Transferred to a community college back home, apparently. His parents are furious about all the wasted tuition money. I finished the semester strong, my grades actually improving now that I wasn't constantly dealing with Trevor drama. Dan and I renewed our housing contract for junior year. We both acknowledged that despite everything, we'd ended up being pretty compatible roommates. The Literary Society published my poem in their annual collection, and my English professor encouraged me to submit it to national competitions as well. I didn't win any of those, but just being recognized felt good. One day in the campus coffee shop, I overheard someone mention Trevor's name. Apparently, he'd tried the same plagiarism tricks at his new school and got caught immediately. This time, there was no one to blame but himself. As for my sister, she called me every week to update me on all the amazing things she was doing with her new laptop. She started learning graphic design and was creating digital art that genuinely impressed me. Seeing her flourish made everything I'd gone through worth it. When summer break came around, Dan invited me to stay with his family for a week since they lived near a beach. I accepted, thinking it would be nice to start fresh without the shadow of Trevor hanging over our friendship. We ended up having a great time, and I realized that without Trevor's toxic influence, Dan was actually a pretty awesome friend. The last day of the semester, I received an unexpected email from Trevor. I almost deleted it without reading, but curiosity got the better of me. The message was short. I'm sorry for everything. You didn't deserve any of that. I'm getting help now. I showed it to Dan, who looked surprised. Do you think he means it? I shrugged. Maybe people can change if they want it badly enough. I never responded to the email. Some bridges are better left uncrossed, but I did save it. A reminder that standing up for yourself and what's right is always worth it, even when it seems easier to just let things slide. As I packed up my dorm room for summer break, I found one of Trevor's old gym socks that had somehow ended up under my bed. I tossed it in the trash without a second thought. Some things and some people aren't worth holding on to. I tossed Trevor's sock in the trash and felt a weight lift off my shoulders. Small victories, right? I was about to head out when my phone buzzed with another notification. The university's Academic Integrity Committee wanted to meet with me again tomorrow. Great. Just what I needed right before summer break. I texted Dan to let him know, and he offered to come with me for moral support. I appreciated the gesture, especially given how much our relationship had improved. We still weren't best buddies or anything, but there was a solid respect between us now. The next morning, we headed to the administration building together. I was nervous, wondering if Trevor had somehow manufactured more fake evidence against me. The committee chair, Professor Rodriguez, greeted us at the door. James, thank you for coming in. This won't take long, she said, leading us into a small conference room. It turned out they just wanted to update me on the situation and get my statement for their final report. Professor Rodriguez explained that Trevor had tried to appeal his expulsion, claiming I had framed him. We've thoroughly investigated his claims, she said, and found them to be completely baseless. In fact, we discovered even more instances of academic dishonesty in his previous work. I nodded, relieved, but also kind of sad about the whole thing. So what happens now? Mr. Michaels is permanently expelled. We're documenting this case thoroughly in case he applies to other institutions. She shuffled some papers. We also wanted to apologize for the stress this caused you and to commend you for your integrity throughout the process. That caught me off guard. I hadn't expected an apology from the university. It felt nice to be validated, especially after doubting myself so many times during this mess. After the meeting, Dan suggested we grab lunch to celebrate the end of this whole Trevor saga. We headed to the campus burger joint and grabbed a booth in the back. So, are you still planning to stay with your sister for the summer? Dan asked between bites of his cheeseburger. Yeah, I'm heading there next week. Can't wait to see her using that laptop in person. I couldn't help smiling at the thought. What about you? Still doing that internship? Dan nodded. Yep. Finance firm downtown. Not exciting, but it'll look good on my resume. We chatted about summer plans and next semester's classes. It felt normal in a way our conversations hadn't for months. No tension, no underlying drama, just two roommates hanging out. As we were leaving, I spotted a familiar face at a corner table. It was Rachel, one of Trevor's ex-friends who had come to apologize to me. She waved us over. Hey guys, I haven't seen you since the end of semester party. She closed her laptop as we approached. How have you been? Just finished our last meeting with the Academic Integrity Committee, I explained. Trevor's expulsion is official. Rachel grimaced. Yeah, I heard. It's crazy how long he got away with all that stuff. She hesitated, then added. Actually, some of us were talking. Trevor wasn't just stealing academic work. He was taking money, too. What? Dan and I said simultaneously. Yeah. Remember that fundraiser for the animal shelter last semester? Trevor was in charge of collecting donations from our dorm building. She lowered her voice. Over $200 never made it to the charity. When we confronted him, he claimed he'd been robbed, but someone saw him buying expensive headphones the next day. I exchanged glances with Dan. This was a whole new level of dishonesty. Did you report it? Rachel nodded. Yesterday. They're adding it to his case file. She sighed. I feel stupid for not seeing through him sooner. Don't, I said firmly. He was really good at manipulation. That's not on you. After talking with Rachel for a few more minutes, we headed back to our dorm to continue packing. I couldn't help thinking about how widespread Trevor's deception had been. It wasn't just academic dishonesty. It was a whole pattern of behavior that affected everyone around him. Later that evening, I was sorting through papers when I found the Literary Society's publication with my poem in it. I flipped it open, rereading my words that had won the contest. It felt good knowing I'd earned that achievement honestly. My phone buzzed with a text from my sister. 2 more days until you're here. Can't wait to show you my new design project. I was about to reply when another message came in from an unknown number. My heart rate spiked immediately, thinking it was Trevor again. But when I opened it, I was surprised to see it was from Jamie, a girl from my psychology class. Hey James, heard what happened with that Trevor guy. Just wanted to say I think you handled it really well. Want to grab coffee before you leave for summer? I smiled and texted back that I'd like that. Maybe something good was coming out of this mess after all. After arranging to meet Jamie the next day, I went back to packing, feeling lighter than I had in months. The next morning, I met Jamie at the campus coffee shop. She was already there when I arrived, working on her laptop with a large coffee beside her. Hey, thanks for meeting me, she said, closing her computer as I sat down. I ordered you a latte. Hope that's okay. Perfect, actually. Thanks. I took a sip, surprised she remembered my usual order from the few times we'd studied together. So, how'd you hear about the Trevor situation? She laughed. Are you kidding? Everyone's heard about it. It's the biggest drama since that professor got caught dating a student last year. She leaned forward. But I wanted to hear your side of it. Must have been pretty rough. So, I gave her the condensed version, leaving out some of the more personal details. She listened attentively, occasionally asking questions or making sympathetic noises. That's horrible, she said when I finished. But I'm not surprised. Trevor hit on me at a party once, and when I turned him down, he spread rumors that I was easy, but he wasn't interested. She rolled her eyes. Classic manipulator move. I'm sorry that happened to you, I said, genuinely angry on her behalf. Seems like he left a trail of destruction everywhere. Well, karma caught up with him eventually, thanks to you. She raised her coffee cup in a mock toast to standing up to jerks. We ended up talking for over 2 hours, discovering we had a lot more in common than just our psychology class. By the time we left, we'd made plans to keep in touch over the summer and meet up again when fall semester started. I was walking back to my dorm feeling pretty good about how things were turning out when I literally ran into Dakota, another of Trevor's former friends. He was carrying a huge box and couldn't see where he was going. Whoa, sorry, I said, helping him straighten the box before it fell. James, just the person I wanted to see. He set the box down on a nearby bench. I'm cleaning out my room and found some stuff that belongs to you. To me? I was confused. What do you mean? Dakota opened the box and pulled out my favorite hoodie that had gone missing months ago, a portable charger I thought I'd lost, and finally, my old gaming controller. Trevor took these from your room over the past year, Dakota explained, looking embarrassed. He kept them in my storage closet because he said you guys were sharing stuff. I only realized they were stolen when Rachel mentioned the charity money yesterday. I was speechless for a moment. The hoodie alone had cost me $50, a splurge I justified because it was super comfortable. Thanks for returning them. I finally managed. Look, I'm really sorry, Dakota said, rubbing the back of his neck. I should have questioned why he was stashing your stuff in my room. That was messed up. I assured him it wasn't his fault and thanked him again for bringing everything back. As I carried my recovered belongings back to the dorm, I marveled at just how extensive Trevor's deception had been. He hadn't just stolen my poem. He'd been taking my stuff all year while pretending to be friendly to my face. When I got back to the room, Dan helped me finish packing. I told him about meeting Jamie and running into Dakota. So, Trevor was basically a kleptomaniac on top of everything else, Dan said, shaking his head. I can't believe I defended him for so long. Water under the bridge, I assured him. And I meant it. Dan had more than made up for his initial loyalty to Trevor. The next day, I said goodbye to Dan and headed to the airport. He promised to text me about our housing arrangement for next year and wish me a good summer. The flight to my sister's place took just under 2 hours. I spent the time thinking about everything that had happened this semester. Despite all the drama with Trevor, I'd actually come out of it in a pretty good place. I'd made some new friends, strengthened my relationship with Dan, maybe started something with Jamie, and most importantly, stood up for myself in a meaningful way. When I landed, my sister was waiting at the gate, practically bouncing with excitement. The moment she saw me, she ran over and tackle-hugged me so hard I almost dropped my backpack. James. Finally, she pulled back, beaming at me. I've been waiting all day. The flight was on time. You goof. I laughed, ruffling her hair like I used to when we were kids. I know, but it felt like forever. She grabbed my arm and started pulling me toward the exit. Come on, I have so much to show you. I've been working on this amazing logo design on my new laptop, and the processing power is insane. It would have crashed my Chromebook for sure. Her enthusiasm was contagious. As we headed to baggage claim, she chatted nonstop about all the projects she'd been working on. I found myself smiling so much my cheeks hurt. When we got to her apartment, she immediately set up her new laptop on the kitchen table and launched into a demonstration of her design portfolio. The quality of her work was genuinely impressive, far beyond what I'd expected. "This is seriously good," I told her, scrolling through the designs. "Have you thought about doing this professionally?" She blushed slightly. "Actually, I got offered a small freelance job designing a logo for a local coffee shop. It doesn't pay much, but it's a start." "That's amazing." I gave her another hug. "I'm so proud of you." Later that night, as we sat on her tiny balcony eating takeout and catching up, my phone buzzed with a text from Dan. He'd sent a photo of our empty dorm room with a caption, "Weird without your mess everywhere. See you in the fall, roomie." I smiled and showed it to my sister. "That's my roommate. We had a rough patch, but we're good now." "The one whose friend stole your poem?" she asked, taking a bite. "Yeah, but that's all over now." I put my phone away. Enough about college drama. Tell me more about this freelance gig. As my sister launched into the details of her project, I felt completely at peace for the first time in months. The whole Trevor saga had been stressful and infuriating, but in the end, I'd stood my ground, and things had worked out. My sister had her laptop, I had my self-respect, and Trevor was facing the consequences of his actions. The next morning, I woke up to an email from the Literary Society. They were publishing a book of winning poems from the past 5 years and wanted to include mine. They also invited me to give a reading at their fall event. I showed the email to my sister over breakfast. "What do you think? Should I do the reading?" "Absolutely," she said without hesitation. "You deserve to enjoy your success after everything that happened." She was right. I replied to the email, accepting both offers, then closed my laptop and suggested we head out to explore the city. As we walked to the subway station, I realized I hadn't thought about Trevor once since arriving. That felt like the biggest victory of all.